Hello and welcome to a new edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Now, one thing you may or may not know is that we get sent a lot of puzzles on the channel, a lot. Our testers do an absolutely amazing job at getting through so many, but sometimes we've been aware that there have been puzzles that should have appeared on the channel, and they haven't for one reason or another. So we've been doing a bit of an audit of that over the last week or so, and we've come up with a short list of puzzles that should definitely have appeared but haven't, and we are going to correct it. So this is the first in a series of puzzles that I think will be very, very nice indeed. This one today is by Joseph Namer, and it's not meant to be too difficult, but it is, it has all of the elegance and beauty that you'd expect from one of Joseph's puzzles. It's called A Week or Two, and I'm guessing this is a reference to the fact that we've got these 14 cages in the grid, and call me, well, don't call me anything in fact, but 14 does seem to be the number of days in 2 weeks, so I'm guessing that's why we've got this title. Anyway, we'll see. Let me read you the rules. We've got normal Sudoku rules apply. In cages, digits must sum to the small clue in the top left corner of the cage, and digits along arrows must sum to the digit in that arrow's circle. So let's just go through those. Okay, I was wondering why we didn't have the usual no digits can repeat within a cage rule, but that's because all of the cages are in their own boxes of the Sudoku, so normal Sudoku rules will force all of these cages not to have repeated digits anyway. How do arrows work? Very simple. You just add up the cells along an arrow, so that one plus that one plus that one. Whatever that sum is, you put it in that arrow circle and you're good to go. Do have a go. As I say, this is meant to be approachable. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. And we seem to have a choice right at the start about whether or not we look at... There are two lengthier arrows I can see, and all of these 14 cages. 14 cages. Let's start with those because I've noticed something about these two. So the question, 14, how do you make 14 in 2 digits? There's only 2 ways. It's either 5-9 or 6-8. Is it possible that the composition of these 14 cages is the same? Let's try it. Whoops, now I've got to put 6 and 8 in row 7 of the grid. Now that's not going to work, however hard we try and make it work. 6 and 8 will have to go in this 14 cage, and they'll have to be accompanied by a 0. Even though you can put 0 in the software, it doesn't obey the rules of normal Sudoku, so that is not going to work for us. So what that means is that these are different, which I suppose means any excuse, I have to colour them in. So these are different. Now that one sees that one as well, so that one is also green, because obviously whatever composition this has, whether it's 5-9 or 6-8, this cell will not be able to be that digit. So if this was 5-9, you can't make this 5 or 9, so it would have to be 6 or 8, and vice versa. Now those are pointing in here, which... 8. Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful start on this. So, there are 2 ways of making 14, and we now know that the 2 green cells, whatever these are, have to appear in this 2x2 region of box 3. So, ask the question, is it possible green is a 6-8 pair? Well, the answer is no, because if we try and put 6-8 into these 4 squares, there is simply no way of doing it. We could try and put the 8 in the circle, but now the only way the arrow's going to work is like that or like that, and that neither of those will obey normal Sudoku rules. So it's not possible now for green to be 6 or 8, which means it must be 5 or 9. I was just checking in my head that 5 and 9 work. 5 and 9 does work, because now let's think about how we're going to fit 5 and 9 into these green cells. Well, we know the 9 must go in the circle, because you can never put 9 on an arrow cell unless that arrow is 1 cell long. This arrow is not 1 cell long, so we have to put the 9 in the circle. Can we make 9 with a 3 cell sum involving a 5? There is exactly one way of doing that, 1, 3, 5. So we're off and running now, and we know that's a 6-8, I suppose, so let's put that in. And right, does that, yeah, okay, now this is nice as well, because actually now we can just use the 9s. Where does the 9 go in box 2? It can't ever go on an arrow, so the 9 goes there. And where does the 9 go in box 6? Well, it can't go on an arrow, so it goes here. Now 9 in box 5 must be in one of 2 places, maybe. And 9 in box 4 must be in 2 places, which is interesting, because now where does the 9 go in column 3? It can't go in those 3, it can't go in those 3, so it's got to go in one of those 3, which doesn't seem to be resolved. Now, not sure whether we can go further than that. Right, so have we exhausted the sort of green and purple logic here? Maybe is the answer. Should we try the 4-cell arrow? Right, yes, so straight away I can see an interesting thing about this 4-cell arrow. In fact, I can see there are lots and lots of interesting things about this arrow. This arrow's geometry is a bit of a giveaway, because look at its composition. Well, let's start with a simple question. Is it possible that this 4-cell arrow doesn't have a repeated digit? And the answer is no, because if we put 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 on the arrow, that adds up to 10. So there is at least one repeated digit on this arrow. Now, the thing I've noticed is you can't repeat a 1, because if you repeat a 1 on this arrow, that will mean there's a 1 in this domino and a 1 in that domino. And now we can't make our 1, 3, 5 triple in box 3 work anymore. So the repeated digit is not a 1. In fact, it's not a 3 either, is it? For exactly the same reason. So it is a 2. And it is a 2 because if it's not a 2, we'd have to repeat something like a 4, and that's already going to get too high. If we go double 4, the other 2 digits can't be 0, so we're going to get to a 10 total, which is going to break this cell. So there is a repeated 2 in these dominoes, which means there's no 2 in those cells, which means there's a 2 in one of these cells. Which might be important. 1 second. I presume there's got to be a 1. Although there can't be 2 1s on this arrow, there must be 1 1, mustn't there? Because if there isn't, you can't use 2 3s, so you'd be going 3 4 and double 2, which is too many. Yeah, so there's definitely there's definitely exactly 1 1 on this arrow. Right, I see. Okay, well this is beautiful. This is a beautiful little idea that Joseph's built into this. So let's think about the fact that there is 1 1 on this 4-cell arrow, which means it's either in this domino or this domino, and how that interacts with the 1 3 5 triple. So what we can see is if the 1 is in this domino, this little square becomes a 1, and this little square becomes a 1. So option 1 results in a 1 in this position. Now option 2 is that the 1 is not in this domino, so it's in this domino, which means there's a 1 in the 1 3 5 triple here, and there's a 1 there. Now this cell is actually really interesting, because if this square is a 1, the puzzle's just broken. Because of this arrow. Because as soon as you can't put a 1 on a 3-cell arrow, and where you can't repeat a digit on the arrow, what are we going to put in those 3 squares? 2, 3 and 4 is the best we'll put in, and that adds to 9, which this can't be. That's just gorgeous. So this square cannot be a 1, and if this square cannot be a 1, there cannot be a 1 in this domino, and therefore there is a 1 in this domino, and if there's a 1 in this domino, we already know there's a 2 in this domino, so that is a 1 2 pair out of nowhere. This square becomes a 1, this is now a 3 5 pair, this is now a 1. similar logic here, therefore. I can't put the 1 in this domino because that's going to give me the same 2, 3, 4 problem on this arrow. So the 1 in this box is in this domino, which is about as useful as a chocolate teapot by the looks of things. Okay, sorry, I thought that might be better. Looks like we're going to have to think harder now. This circle is a bit restricted because of the 1-2 pair in the box, so those two squares have a minimum value of 3 plus 4, so that's at least equal to 7, and it can't be 9, so this is 7 or 8, which means there's definitely a 3 on the arrow, so it's either 3, 4 or it's 3, 5, but there is definitely a 3 on it. Ah, look, and we know where the 3 goes. Sorry, I could have done this earlier. Look, the 3 is ruled out of those 3 squares, so there's a 3 in one of these 3 squares. That cannot be a 3, and therefore the 3 must live here. Still doesn't tidy up what this composition is. Those 2 squares, maybe. We know. So at the moment we've got 5 on this arrow, but we've got 1 more digit to come. Right, so, and that digit cannot be a 1, so this is either 2, 3 or 2, 4. Unfortunately, that's not actually that helpful. So that means this square is 8 or 9, which again is not that helpful. Bobbins. Okay. So, what does this mean? I'm sure it means something, but I'm not sure what that something is, so we're going to have to think harder. I guess now, here's something. I know this is not a 2, 3, 4 arrow, therefore it has a 1 on it, and that 1 is not in that position. So there's a 1 in that domino, which means that we can ask where 1 goes in row 6 of the grid. And you can see it's going to have to be in one of those 3 squares, which again is perhaps not the most revealing thing we've ever learnt in our lives. Okay, so we have to think harder again. Where is the natural place to look? Is it this 3-cell arrow? Or is it somewhere else? 2s, 3s. This column, perhaps? We need 4, 6, 7 and 8. I don't like that very much. No, I feel like, oh, I see. I can do 5, look. 5 in this box has to be in one of those 3 positions. So that means this square's a 3, and that square's a 5. That's also about as useful as a chocolate teapot. No, I feel like I've got a bit stuck. What else can we do? Maybe this square, is that restricted? That square... Okay, yeah, maybe it is actually, because it can't be 1, 2 or 5. It definitely can't be 6. If we put 6 in there, we have to put 9 in there, which is impossible. So this square is... okay, so this square is a 3 or a 4. And if that square's a 3 or a 4... Right, now look at row 3. Where does 6 and 8 go? The answer is that they must go in those 2 positions exactly, which means this square must be a naked single, that's a 7. Which which might be useful, I don't know. Is that useful? I'm not sure it is actually. No, I'm not seeing how to do this at all. This is appalling. Come on, Simon. This puzzle is not meant to be that hard, so I must be making a meal of it. What can we see here? Can we do more with ones? We've got ones here, ones here. Yeah, one's got to be... Oh, look, yeah, of course, look, this square can't be a 1. Sorry, when I say this square can't be a 1, I mean exactly the opposite of that. This square is a 1. That square's a 1, just by Sudoku, look, because there's a 1 here, a 1 here. Therefore, there's a 1 here. Ah, now I've got something interesting, which is that look where 2 can go in this box. And the answer to where 2 can go is, we can't be very precise about it, but it's got to be in one of those 3 cells. Now, where does 2 go in box 7? You can't put a 2 in a 2-cell arrow cell, because I can't double 1 this arrow. So 2 has a panoply of options. It's got to be in one of those 6 cells. But the critical thing about that is that 2 is, well, there's 2 things I notice about the 2s. The 2s have got to go in one of those 3 positions in column 1. But more important than that, I think, is that the 2 cannot go on this arrow. Now, if you can't put 2 on this arrow, what must it add up to? It must add up to 8, because the minimum we could ever put on it would be 1, 3, and 4. And we can never put 9 on it because of that 9 there. So we now know that's an 8, and this is a 1, 3, 4 arrow. Which doesn't seem to actually do... Oh, no. Oh, I've just noticed something that does do. I've noticed 2 things it does. There's an 8 here, so that's a 6. And this is an 8. Maybe there's more things it does, but the other thing I've noticed is this 3. Now there's a 3 in one of those 2 squares. That means there's no 3 in those squares, so this becomes a 1, 4 pair, and it actually resolves the 3 back in box 1 again. That resolves that. 2, 4. That resolves this. This arrow now adds up to 9. 3, 1, 4 there. This is a 4 by the power of Sudoku. Look, so the 4's in one of those 2 squares. That's a 4 by the power of Sudoku, and that's beautiful. Because this arrow now must be a 1, 3 pair, which must be done like this. That's no longer a 3. There's a 1 in one of those 2 squares because it can't go in the circle. Those 2 squares are a 2, 8 pair, which is probably important, but again, I'm not quite seeing how to use that. Oh no, where does 2 go? In that box at the bottom, it's got to go in that position. So these squares are 5, 7, and 9, and I can see that's going to give me this digit. So let's put this, let's put this in and see what it looks like. 5, 7, 9. This square now has got to be a 6. So 6 is in one of those 2 squares, 6 is in one of these 2 squares. And let's take another stare and try and work out where we should look next. This 8, which we got, oh yeah, okay, we got the 6, 8 pair. That's looking at that square, so that becomes a 7, which means that square's a 4 to make the arrow work. This 4 is fixing the 4 and the 1, that's fixing the 1 and the 2. That's getting rid of that cell. Now look, we can't put 6 in this circle anymore because this domino here cannot be 1, 5 or 2, 4. So you can't make it add up to 6, which places the 6 in box 5. And is that important? It might be. We need 5. Look in this column where we need 5, 7 and 9. Well, there's a 7, 9 there, so this square's a 5. This is now, which fixes the top of the grid. That means that square's a 9, that's a 2, and that's a 7. Good grief, and we're suddenly cooking with gas now. This square is an 8. Lovely. This 8 has to be made up in a domino. It's not 2, 6, it's not 1, 7. So this domino is 3, 5, which we might not be able to do, but that places a 5 by Sudoku in box 6, which means we've got a 6, 8 pair there. That 8 goes in, that 6 goes in. At the top of the column, we've got to have 2 and something. 2 and... ah, my scanning's gone. 2 and 4. Ah, that's good. 4 and 2 go in. Those two squares are 6 and 7, which doesn't seem to be resolved. Let's put it in, or put in the options. 2 and the 8 get fixed. So suddenly it's all opening up, I think. This 14 cage is probably forced now because it can't have 1, 3 or 4 in it. So it must have 2 in it, because if it doesn't have 2 in it, it would have to be a minimum of 5, 6 and 7, and 5, 6 and 7 adds to 18. So there's a 2 in here and 2 cells that add up to 12, which are not 3, 9 and 4, 8. So this is 2, 5, 7, which means that square's become a 9 out of nowhere. This is a 5, 7 pair. Those two squares are now 6 and 8, which we can do. So that's 8, that's 6. That fixes the 6 and the 7 at the top of the grid. This domino down here is a 2, 3 pair, and there's a 2 there. So that's 2, that's 3. And that domino is 4, 7, which unfortunately doesn't seem to be resolved. Okay. So, what do we do now? What we do now is the very simplest thing we could possibly do, which is place the last 9 in the grid. Well, not the last 9, but we can place the 9 in box 8. You can't put 9 on an arrow, so the 9's going to have to go there. That fixes the 9, fixes the 5, 5 and the 7 and the 4. This arrow's probably doable now, because it can't be 1, 8, 2, 7 or 4, 5. So this is 3, 6, there's a 6 here, beautiful. That fixes this. That doesn't get fixed. Okay, what do we still need in this? This 6 is giving us a 6 and an 8. That's giving us an 8 and a 1. That's giving us a 4. That's giving us the 4 and the 2. That's giving us... no. Maybe it's not giving us what I thought it was giving us, but it was nearly giving us something. That's a 2 by Sudoku. So that's a 2 by Sudoku. These squares have got to be 1, 4, 7, a snooker maximum. And the 4 must lead the way, so that's a 4, and this is a 1, 7 pair. Yeah, okay, and now if we just take a quick stare at the grid, we've actually done all of the arrows and all of the cages. So it should just be a relatively straightforward finish now. That's got to be 3 by Sudoku. This is an 8, this is a 1. That fixes the 1 and the 7. That fixes the 7 and the 5. Now this is a 5. I still need to put 6 and 7 into this, so that should be 7, that should be 6. We click tick. That's how to do it. Beautiful puzzle, as usual from Joseph. Well worth a showcase on the channel. Just very enjoyable, and it fooled me in the middle for a while. There were a couple of really... it's a beautiful start, where the greens basically get locked into this pattern here, and you can work out it's got to be 1, 3, 5 adding up to 9. Then this arrow was beautiful in how it interacted, and the 1 being locked out of this square by this arrow was very cute. Then I got stuck, didn't I? What did I miss at the point I got stuck? I think I missed a few things. I missed the fact this arrow had to have a 1 on it, and that would have allowed me to place a 1 here. And I missed the fact that I couldn't have a 2 on this arrow for a while. And as soon as you can't have a 2 on this arrow, it had to add up to 8, and that gave me that 8, and then I was away again. So yeah, there's a lot going on, isn't there? You can see how these brilliant constructors work their magic in these 9x9 grids. I hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you had a go. Let me know in the comments, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.